This House is in session.
Announcements by Your Honor.
There are two messages from the Honorable the Senate. Message 1, from the Honorable the Senate to the Honorable the House of Assembly. The Honorable the Senate has the honor to inform the Honorable the House of Assembly that at its sitting on Monday, 13th December 2021, the Debt Settlement Arrears Bill 2021 was amended in the terms as cited below. In Clause 3, Paragraph D, delete the words of any kind, and after the word government, insert the words subject to Section 5, subsection 2. In Clause 5, renumber as Clause subsection 1. In Paragraph C, delete the words of any kind. Insert new subclause 2 as follows. For the avoidance of doubt, Paragraph 1C does not apply to salaries, pensions, gratuities, or any other emolument payable to public officers or any person employed by the government. And the Honorable the Senate transmits the amended bill to the Honorable the House of Assembly, inviting concurrence in the amendments to the bill, dated the 13th day of December 2021, signed by the President. Message 2, from the Honorable the Senate to the Honorable the House of Assembly. The Honorable the Senate has the honor to inform the Honorable the House of Assembly that at its sitting on Monday, 13th December 2021, the Customs Bill 2021 was amended in the terms as cited below. In Clause 2, the definitions of a authorized economic operator was amended to include the words made under this act after the words regulations. B, trusted trader was amended to include the words made under this act after the words the regulations. And the Honorable the Senate transmits the amended bill to the Honorable the House of Assembly, inviting concurrence in the amendments to the bill, dated the 13th day of December 2021, signed by the President.
Messages from Her Excellency the President, petitions, papers, government notices.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to give notice of a resolution to seek the concurrence of the Honorable the House of Assembly in the amendments made by the Honorable the Senate to the Debt Settlement Arrears Bill 2021 and the Customs Bill 2021.
Private members' notices, notices of questions, report from select committees, first reading of bills.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the first reading of the Income Tax Country by Country Reporting Bill 2021.
The question is that this bill be read a first time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Statements by ministers. Congratulatory and or obituary speeches. Personal explanations. Motions for leave of absence. Oral replies to questions. Notice of motions for adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance. Orders of the day. Suspension.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the suspension of standing orders 6, 16, 18, 20, 42, subsection 5, 43, and 44 for the remainder of today's sitting.
Question is that the aforementioned standing orders be suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. The aforementioned standing orders are hereby suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting.
Order number 11 on the supplementary order paper. In the name of the Honorable Minister of Finance and the Ministry of Finance, to move the passing of a resolution to seek the concurrence of the House of Assembly in the amendments made by the Honorable Senate to the Debt Settlement Arrears Bill 2021 and the Customs Bill 2021.
Honorable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I wish, in moving this resolution, just for the record of the Chamber, to reinforce the point that when this bill was contemplated as part of the wider debt restructuring for the country, sir, that for the record, the personal and or pensionable emoluments, sir, of public servants were never contemplated to be part of any settlement with respect to the payment of bonds. And I just want to reinforce for the purpose of the amendment that was made in the Senate, sir, such that the public, for the avoidance of any doubt, that the public understands that the amendment that was made in the Senate was just to give clarity with respect to that, given some concerns that were raised. So just to reinforce, sir, we concur with the amendment that was made in the context that as part of the debt restructuring, as part of settling a number of arrangements that were left for this government to resolve, that the personal emoluments, which means, sir, wages and salaries, pensionable emoluments, sir, meaning gratuities and pensions, were never contemplated as part of the arrangement under the debt restructuring. It was never contemplated then, sir. It is not contemplated now, and therefore I, on behalf of the government, concur with the amendments made in the Senate, and so too, sir, concurring with the amendments made, in relation to the debt settlement arrears bill, as well as the amendments with respect to the customs bill. And with those very few words, sir, I beg to move that this resolution be now agreed to.
The question is that this resolution be now agreed to. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. The ayes have it. This resolution stands passed.
Order number 9, sir. Order number 9, in the name of the Honorable Minister of Finance, to move the second reading of the Public Procurement Bill 2021.
Honorable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to commence this debate against the background, sir, that this government, over the course of the last 3.5 years, sir, has set about a process of re-engineering, sir, repurposing, retooling, re-energizing, sir, just trying to refashion the modus operandi that has existed in this country for some time. And the purpose of this legislation today, sir, was for some maybe deemed as long in coming, and I must admit, sir, that it has been, not least because of any lack of effort on our part, but certainly with respect to what has transpired in this country over the last few years. And I wish at the outset, sir, to put in context that the discussion and the debate this morning about public procurement, sir, and the bill that is before the chamber, that I wish to remind Barbadians through you, sir, that everything is connected, sir. Everything is connected. and the extent to which we have had over the last few days, sir, persons indicating that the government is paying people by IOU, sir, and that the Fair Credit Reporting Bill, sir, is trying to somehow disenfranchise people, sir, ignores the fact, sir, that over the course of the last 15 years for sure, a number of these very critical reforms were missing, which would have allowed a number of Barbadian individuals and companies, sir, to be able to execute their business better, and certainly with government. And I am encouraged to remind citizens, sir, that when we came to office, we were faced with a circumstance where there was $1.9 billion, sir, in arrears for the provision of goods and services, sir, to the government of Barbados that this administration, sir, has had to resolve. And the reason I'm reinforcing the point that everything is connected, sir, because coming out of the debt restructuring, sir, we established a framework through which those persons who supplied their goods and services to the last administration, sir, and were not paid, we established a framework that would allow them to be paid, sir. So when I hear outside of this place persons who are seeking to represent the last administration, because, sir, I've not heard or seen anything constructive that would suggest how they would resolve any of these matters that they have left facing this country, sir, such that the efforts that this government has been undertaking, sir, to resolve all of the matters that have faced this country and has put this country, sir, into some peril under the last administration. That we continue to work, sir, even in the most extraordinary set of circumstances as COVID, sir, has presented to us. And we continue, sir, to settle that $1.9 billion, sir, that was left for us to pay, even, sir, under this pandemic. And so as I raise this bill today, sir, it has to be seen in a context, because whilst we are resolving those issues, sir, as part of a program designed, sir, to remedy some of these challenges that have long faced this country, public procurement and the way that it is conducted, sir, and as we have, as a government, sir, we have put systematically, sir, key pieces of persons might refer to as reforms, but we have been responding, sir, to the needs of people across a wide cross-section in this country to resolve matters that have been long-standing, sir, for too long. And we do so in the context that obviously in a legislative framework, sir, you have to provide the rules and that will underpin how business is conducted in the country. But we have been, sir, reforming and making things as easy as we could possibly make it, sir, for people to participate. And I believe, sir, that this public procurement bill, as I will seek to explain the benefits of it and how the average person, whether small, medium, or large, sir, will be able to participate if they so choose, sir, if they so choose, to allow us to be able to achieve, sir, the objectives of what we have set out as critical responses to some of the long-standing issues as it relates to the access, not just of public procurement, but certainly in relation to helping to build out a more sustainable economy. And so these noises that we keep hearing, sir, as if the government is operating in a vacuum, sir, I think is disingenuous, completely disingenuous. We have been fixing, sir, long-standing issues, and long-standing issues will not be resolved overnight, because as we introduce new systems, new processes, new ways of doing things, sir, and opening up the space. And the purpose of this exercise this morning, sir, is to explain to people the government's intent clearly, sir, to open the space, sir, with respect to the conduct of public procurement, and to allow people to be able to participate, sir, if they so choose. We have been quite clear, sir, and very deliberate in that in helping to enfranchise, sir, a number of small business people, persons who are now starting up, sir, and I will repeat it because it is worth repeating, sir, and it is something that I am proud of. We have been able to despite the fact that the pandemic has thrown a little spanner in the works, so to speak, the reforms are still valid, sir. The introduction of the trust loan program, sir, was designed specifically to assist small business persons to be able to build up their credit history, sir, such that when you are, whether you are interfacing with government, sir, or you're interfacing with the private sector, sir, that helps to boost your, for lack of a better term, sir, credit worthiness, such that in the assessment, sir, of whether someone can actually execute a specific project or not, that helps, sir. And the extent to which we are seeking to remove the hurdles that have confronted many people, sir, in this country from participating, I simply reinforce the point, sir, that unless we find a way to bring people in and not use social media, sir, to try to give misinformation to people, that all that will serve to do, sir, is to turn people away rather than engaging. And the engagement with the systems and the reforms that we have put in place, sir, I believe within my heart of hearts that if people are able to peel them back and recognize them for what they are worth, that we will be able, sir, to turn the corner, not just in the context of public procurement, but being able to turn the corner by being able to build stronger enterprises, sir, at all levels, and to allow for a much more competitive environment, not just for procurement, I believe, in the public sector, but certainly in the context of access to procurement across the landscape of this country. And so this bill this morning, sir, is to open up that space. And let me say up front, sir, up front, for the benefit of those who are listening or care to listen, sir, before we passed the Public Finance Management Act, sir, in 2019, there was something called the Financial Management and Audit Act, sir, under which there was the Financial Management Audit Financial Rules of 2011. And I obviously it's a document in the House, so I don't need to lay this. But the point is, sir, there are rules within here that govern how procurement is executed. And the extent to which entities may or may not advertise the procurement are pretty much governed here by the rules in here, sir. And oftentimes, I know that some of the issues that have been plaguing the country as it relates to procurement is really, sir, in part, the provision of information. And this procurement bill, at the outset, sir, intends to change the way information is provided, sir. And as you know, sir, we live in the 21st century. And in the 21st century, sir, information, credible information, sir, is what will be required for the average person, sir, living in Wharton or Lodge Road, sir, or in Waterhall land, sir. That it is the provision of that information, sir, that would allow them to determine, sir, whether they will participate or seek to participate, sir, in providing a tender or quotation or whatever the case is, sir, with respect to any specific activity. And I will go through in detail, sir, and outline what the framework of the bill would potentially look like in practice, to the extent that the average person will understand that when we say that we are opening up the space, sir, and providing the information, then you have to recognize, sir, the benefits of the system. And I believe at my heart of heart, sir, that despite what may or may not be said, sir, outside of this place, it is the intention of this government, sir, to transform the way that public procurement is done such that the ordinary citizen, sir, wherever they are in this country, if they are desirous of engaging with government and government entities, sir, that if they are desirous of participating, then they would have the opportunity to assess for themselves whether they are capable of responding to the specific request, sir, making the necessary submission to the entity, sir, and allowing through a process, sir, that is ordered, allow for the procuring entities as defined in the bill, to be able to do these selections. And let me just say and remind the chamber at the outset, because it is important for the chamber and through you, sir, and for the country to be reminded. When we passed the Public Finance Management Act, sir, you will recall that we amended the financial rules to reflect our view that from an affirmative action perspective, that certainly for persons with disabilities, sir, that 1% pretty much of government procurement we will initiate at a minimum to try to make sure that those persons within that community are capable of having access to. By the same token, sir, we identified that 5% of government's procurement really should go for businesses that are owned by young people. Equally, sir, we indicated then that geography is a critical factor to be determined with respect to the provision of services, and I will come back to this in the context of the bill, so it's such that, by clear example, that persons will understand how that can work, how it is intended to work, sir, such that we are able to, but through the deliberate actions of the entities, to bear these principles in mind, sir, whilst transforming the way that public procurement will be executed. And let me say at the outset that I know that oftentimes when tenders may go out, they go through the process, sir. A procuring entity, a department, a ministry, or state-owned enterprise, or whoever, sir, will receive the bids from whoever. They go through the process. There is a tenders committee, sir, that evaluates, that receives, evaluates, and the process through which those bids are open. Representatives are already there to be able to do that and assess that. It goes through the process, and a successful supplier is selected. And oftentimes, yes, it is not published in the way that one would like, and this legislation will seek to address that, and we'll go through specifics. But the point I want to make at the outset is that oftentimes, when it comes to implementation, okay, implementation, which may very well be, sir, sometimes 6-9 months after the procurement has been completed. 6-9 months, could be 18 months, sir. Sometimes the duration is depending on the length of the project. You get questions about the procurement of the process, even though the process took place, sir, 6 or 9 months prior, and the queries that come sometimes may suggest that something went wrong in the procurement process. And I want to say to citizens, sir, that as we seek to transform this, it is not my expectation, sir, that just the mere provision of information will change the perception about procurement. But I think it is important that as a government, that we provide the information to the people, and we provide the framework through which people can have faith in the context of public procurement. And I know that we have been working internally, certainly within the context of the Ministry of Finance and the wider reforms across government, to seek to improve the internal administration such that once procurement is determined in terms of the selection of the specific supplier, that its implementation can go as smoothly as possible. And there are things in this bill that will speak to some of the internal administration, sir, which can assist with that, so that as entities now across government are developing their procurement plans, that the provision of this type of information to the public, sir, again, would allow for any interested supplier who's registered, and I will come to that, sir, who is registered, who will register the interest in being a supplier to government, sir, will be able to review the procurement plans of any department for that matter. And can in advance, given that government appropriates, as you well know, the government comes here every year, we go through exercise, which will start very soon, well, is already started internally. As you know, sir, estimates has to be laid in March in this chamber. We are going to go through the internal exercise in January, the Ministry of Finance, with ministries and state-owned enterprises, to approve the next year's budget. And therefore, in the publication of those procurement plans by entities, just the provision of that information, sir, would allow persons to know what is in the pipeline of government. And knowing what is in the pipeline of government, sir, you can then gear your internal system, sir, to be able to plan for that. I say so, sir, because it is important to say to the public that as we are changing things, sir, as we are changing things, that the internal processes will change, sir, but equally it will mean that for persons who are interested in supplying procurement to government, that they now will have access to more information. And in having access to that information, sir, about procurement opportunities, that they will be in a position, sir, to be able to determine for themselves which opportunity they may wish to go after. Now, I accept, sir, that just give me, sorry. I accept, sir, that this will be a sea change, because for the first time, as we roll this out and the provision, sir, of a e-tendering system, that as we roll this out, the entire process of the governance of procurement will change. And there are some very specific things which I will get to, sir, that I will stress will be important, because whether you are a central government agency or ministry, or whether you are a state-owned enterprise or a commercial state-owned enterprise as defined under the Public Finance Management Act, sir, this bill, this legislation will govern everybody, such that the process of procurement will be consistent, sir, across every entity that government has any interest in. And therefore, I whilst in the past, as it has been the case with respect to some entities could, well, most did, adopt the financial rules. This act applies to all government entities, whether central government or state-owned enterprises as they're referred to. And any entity that may be set up in the future, sir, this act would apply to with respect to procurement. And therefore, there will be no discretion, if you like, sir, between the central government, between the state-owned enterprises as defined in the Public Finance Management Act when it comes to procurement. So, at the outset, this piece of legislation, once passed and enacted, sir, will apply to every state entity, no matter the corporate structure. What I wish to start and get into is that we are doing this, sir. We are doing this not just because of the need to do the internal reforms of public procurement, not just to improve transparency, sir, not just to improve accountability, but we are doing this because we are very clear, sir, and conscious that in order to bring more people into the process of public procurement, that the easier that we can make it for people to get access to the information to be able to make the decisions with respect to whether they wish to submit a tender or not, and for procuring entities who, based on the specific activity, can utilize the register of suppliers as intended, sir, to be able to help change the circumstances with respect to small business people, medium-sized businesses, sir, large businesses for that matter, and to foster an environment where, sir, as I said earlier, that we not just receive more competitive bids, but I want to reinforce the point, sir, to the country, that once we do this, sir, as is already the case, once we do this, it opens up the space, sir, for any entity to be able to register as a supplier. I, sir, will be encouraging, which I'm sure all members in this chamber will be encouraging all of the persons that we encounter as we move around our constituencies, that if they are desirous of engaging with government, to be able to register and come into the system. Because at the end of the day, sir, I use the term register only in the context, sir, of being able to get free access to the information. Because whilst at the moment, sir, I know, as you know, sir, today is Tuesday, and as some people in this country do, some people buy a Sunday paper, sir, some people buy a Wednesday paper. But they might not buy the Tuesday paper that the ad appears in, sir, with respect to the procurement opportunity. And therefore, my reference to registering, sir, under the e-tendering system is to avoid any of that type of asymmetric information, for lack of a better term, sir, being present, because we want to remove, sir, any doubt, any prohibition in terms of the access of information. So once you register as a supplier under the new system, sir, and any department, any state-owned enterprise, sir, puts up an opportunity, then it naturally comes to your email address which you have supplied in the system, and you can see the opportunity, whether it's Sunday, whether it's Monday, whether it's Thursday, no matter what, sir. And you are then capable of determining whether you respond or not. And these are some of the, whether you think about it, that's how some people in this country, sir, based on what we do culturally, the information isn't always published. And even if it is published in the Sunday Sun, sir, you might not really see it. And therefore, this proposed new system will actively, sir, give the notifications to persons who have been registered for specific activities, if you like, such that there's an active prompt to you, the interested supplier, such that we are changing, sir, the way that procurement is done. And this is particularly important because sometimes, sir, you might see the ad in the paper, and as often the case, as you know, sir, there's normally a 3 or 4 week period with respect to procurement. You might see the ad in the paper, and it might be a week to go before the deadline. And you're scrambling now, sir, trying to prepare the thing only because you happen to have caught it Sunday, but the deadline is Friday. So you know got to scramble up, sir, and do all of this production of proposal and all these types of things, sir. So what we are seeking to do, sir, is to transform that. And it is not that entities wouldn't still put it in the paper, because they can still certainly put it in the paper, because at the end of the day, some persons may or may not be a registered supplier at the time, and having seen something in the paper, they can then register and get on. But the sea change, sir, is once you are a registered supplier under the system, and most persons already are vendors within the context of the system right now, in terms of the finance system, they are vendors at the Treasury, which once you are already supplying goods and services to any government department, you are a vendor at the Treasury. But the difference is, sir, is that once an entity, as proposed, publishes a procurement opportunity, you, sir, will get the notification immediately upon posting. You, sir, will get all of the documentation immediately as opposed with respect to that. Because when you see it in the paper, sir, you know, got to call up the procuring department and sorry, the procuring department, the procuring entity, sorry, the department that is putting up the notice. You know, got to go and got to go and get all of this information. We're changing all of that, sir, so that when you get the notification, sir, under the system, your email, when you log in, you're seeing all of the documentation that relates, sir, to that piece of procurement. Such that the way that it is being transformed, sir, is also intended, sir, to such that the provision of the information to you, the supplier, we are trying to take away all of the back and forth between whether you see it in the email or you got to go and get documents printed somewhere, sir, at some department, just changing all of that so that the procuring entity, sir, is intended to make it easier for any supplier, small, medium, or large, sir, who is interested in participating to so do, and allows then for the use of the time, sir, the use of the time in focusing on how do I respond to this. One of the key things, sir, is that there will be standard bidding documents, sir, and standard contractual documents within the context of this framework. And the reason for that, sir, is that oftentimes you have a situation where and no offense to lawyers, sir. No, so I hope, but the simple point is we want to standardize the contracts and standardize the bid documents, such that it takes away from a lot of the back and forth with respect to, because a lot of this stuff is routine. So therefore, you're trying to take away a lot of the back and forth between the department and the SG's chambers and trying to make sure that the documents are the right documents and all of that. So it means then that a procuring entity, a department, a ministry, a state-owned enterprise, sir, waterworks, as people say, sir, sanitation, any of these entities, sir, will be able to put this information out in a timely manner, such that when you've gone through the process, that you can expedite the actual delivery, because you're cutting out a lot of the back and the cut and thrust. So, in principle, sir, you might be my lawyer, and I say, well, I've won this contract to do something, sir, and you review the bid document, and you are satisfied with the bid document, off I go. Because it's a standard document, and therefore there's very little need then for there to be a lot of intervention, unless there is something particularly peculiar which might be related to complex matters like PPPs and those types of things, which provision is made for in the bill, that we are really truly, sir, seeking to make it as easy as possible for persons to get to do business with government, such that the time for which we can move between a decision and execution, that a lot of that is cut out. And we are really hoping that with the provision of these standardized documents across the space, that effectively, sir, and here's the thing, when you register, sir, under the system, because right now, if you are a supplier to government, and let's say, sir, you want to do some work for the NHC, you got to submit your documents to NHC. If you want to do work for welfare, sir, you got to submit your documents to welfare. If you want to do work, sir, for Child Care Board, you got to go and submit the same documents, sir, to Child Care Board. And on and on and on and on you go, sir. But under this system, sir, you register as a supplier wants. And the registration as a supplier one time, sir, means that you don't have to hurt your head, sir, in responding to a tender invitation. You're going to hurt your head, sir, about re-registering and trying to find the documentation and all of these types of things over and over. So we're cutting out, sir, a lot of that redundant exercise on both ends. On both ends, where the single registration as the supplier means you're in the system. And being in the system, sir, means you can respond to any request. It doesn't guarantee that you will be selected. I want to make that important. So registration does not mean you are guaranteed to be selected, but it is meant to improve the process through which persons can participate, and it then comes down, sir, effectively to your ability to respond to the appropriate bid documents, and in the context of where price and technical, because obviously often, sir, there's a technical proposal and there's a price proposal, two separate matters. So people need to assess, sir, whether or not you or I, sir, can do the job vis-a-vis every other member in here doing the specific job. So if all 30 of us, sir, in here apply for the same job, 29 of us gonna be disappointed, sir. That's just the reality of it. And it doesn't mean that it's the end of the world for me. It just means I gotta dust off myself, sir, and come fresh next time. Because you are operating in an environment, sir, where the process of the evaluation of these things are intended specifically to be more open, and depending on the nature of the specific procurement process, there are varying ways through which a lot of these things can be addressed. So I think, sir, that gives a decent overview of where we are taking this process, and it is important that what we know, sir, as central purchasing, and everybody knows central purchasing, sir, back in the day let's say back in the day. Let me say back in the day. Everybody knows central purchasing as central purchasing. But effectively, central purchasing, sir, central purchasing as it is known, really is now the government procurement department. And therefore, central purchasing, as we know it, government procurement, sir, department, takes on a little more responsibility in this process, sir, than just the collective buy-in that central purchasing does, as well as the administration. There's a little more responsibility of central purchasing in order to be able to help manage and advise entities with respect to procurement. The administration of it in part 2 speaks to the role of the chief procurement department and how that is being related to the director of finance and his role with respect to the functions of the department. Of course, sir, tenders committees are the usual thing, which are in place, and as you know, sir, with respect to the drug tenders, there's provision there for that. For the first time, sir, there will be the establishment of a public procurement tribunal. All right, and as you know, as it stands at the moment, if you or I, sir, bid for a piece of work somewhere, sir, at the moment, there really is no provision for me to ask or challenge the process. And therefore, it is intended throughout this that persons, one, will get the information. I will go through that in a little more detail, because it's important to understand that this thing is being changed to the benefit of all persons who one, are suppliers, but then two, at the next level, once persons submit responses or bids or quotations or whatever to a particular process, it then elevates to a different level, and the treatment of information with respect to that. So I'll come back to that, sir. Right, so the planning and initiation of procurement, sir, part 3, is important, and as I said, the purpose of this effectively, sir, is to ensure that government can execute its procurement properly and in a very focused way. Because oftentimes, as you may know, sir, and certainly in the last 18 months, there's been such a disruption in the way that COVID has had, that it really has impacted negatively on the one hand, the pace of procurement, because if you're relying on getting materials or anything from overseas, sir, there's been such disruption that the actual planning and implementation of procurement has been disrupted. But those issues aside, sir, entities are required under this act to give to the procurement department their procurement plans by the end of January every year. as part of the thing. But of course, as we go through the estimates exercise, sir, we normally will get that during the discuss that in the contemplation of estimates, and once the estimates process is finalized and determined, because at the end of the day, sir, what usually happens, and just for the benefit of the country, in January, as I said earlier, we will go through the formal exercise as the Ministry of Finance with entities. We will determine, based on what they are proposing, sir, what would be financed and what will not be financed, and that influences then obviously, sir, the procurement plan. Because under this framework, and certainly under PFM, you can't go out there, sir, and advertise for something that you don't got money to be able to execute, because that would be a recipe, sir, for disaster. And the extent to which the planning of procurement is critical depends on the decisions that certainly the Ministry of Finance gives with respect to the signals to the departments. And therefore, at the end of that process, as we go through with each ministry, sir, and the agencies under there, the procurement plans then are required to be submitted to the department, such that these are some of the things, sir, that will be published, and therefore allow for entities to be able to, so entities, by meaning prospective suppliers, to be able to participate if they so desire. Clause 14, which is what we all know, central purchasing / government procurement to do, is procurement of common items. That has been the core function of the government procurement department, sir, for some time, known as central purchasing. They purchase, for example, sir, all of the toilet paper for central government, and they distribute it. All of the soap supplies and the common things that all ministries and departments normally would need, they normally take care of that, and that does not change in the context of this exercise. But what I want to get to quickly, sir, is part 4, which is the method of procurement, because it is instructive, sir, that as I indicated earlier, and I will try to give clarity by way of example, but just for the benefit of not just members but the public, none of the examples that I give clearly are exhaustive, and therefore it is intended to be understood in the context of which that is a wider context, but that the method of procurement will inform, sir, what not just the openness and the transparency, but will give credence and credibility to the intent with respect to government, and which means that in the execution of a procuring entity, whether central government or state-owned enterprise, sir, that persons will have the flexibility to determine, I say flexibility, the flexibility to determine which procurement method it is how it is applied, sir, that I believe will be critically important. So section 16 and onwards, sir, and I'll go through just a few, just to give by way of example. Says a procuring entity shall, subject to subsection 2, conduct procurement by means of open tendering where the estimated value is in excess of 300,000. Okay, and for the combination of goods and services, 500,000 for the procurement of works, or combination of those things. And that is there just to make sure, because of the size of it, that you're able to open up within the context of the procurement process. As it stands at the moment, entities are required to do that above 200,000. It is 300,000 here in this specific legislation. But what I want to also focus on, sir, is subclause 2, 16.2, which says a procuring entity may conduct procurement by means of restricted tendering in the circumstances set out in 18.1, engage in single source procurement in circumstances set out in 47.1, and conduct procurement by means of requests for proposals where the estimate or actual value of the procurement does not equal or exceed the relevant threshold in there. And this, sir, is intended to make sure that there is a clear process with respect to making sure that once a person is registered within the context of the system, sir, that they understand what is required of them. And in some instances, sir, as has been the case throughout, I know for a fact, we have asked, for example, in the execution of the HOPE program as originally envisaged, I know that the Ministry of Housing and the Ministry of Economic Affairs had sent out a proposal for persons to pre-qualify. And pre-qualification is one of those very critical things, sir, that would be important, because once you have been established as being capable of delivering a specific service, then pre-qualification is a legitimate means, sir, of determining who you open up the tenders for. And there are certain, depending on the specifics of a tender opportunity, obviously the need to pre-qualify will change based on that, but pre-qualification, sir, is a legitimate process, and thereby once entities have been pre-qualified, then you could imagine, sir, that they're not, just by way of example, there are not many entities, sir, that I am aware of in the country that can provide broadband service. And so instinctively, one could think of those entities being pre-qualified to be able to do so. But it really, sir, can range to anything. Open tendering, sir, is where a procuring entity will engage in open tendering by publishing a notice of the tender. And this we encourage, because by doing so, it really does open up the entity to see what is out there by way of services, get a wide range of persons to be able to submit bids of a technical nature, sir, and obviously being able to participate openly in the process. And I believe, sir, that this will help to facilitate a number of very critical things. Restricted tendering, sir, which is very clear here, but in the context of where goods, works, and services to be procured are available from 10 suppliers or less, sir, in the context of this is similar to Rule 232 that is in the current financial rules, except that Rule 232 speaks to 7 suppliers, sir. We've now moved it to 10 persons. It speaks to the circumstances giving rise to the urgency where neither foreseeable by the entity nor the result of dilatory conduct on the part of the entity. And that specific provision, sir, is similar to Rule 239 as currently exists. And so the extent to which we expect entities to plan and execute their procurement, sir, the intention is to allow persons to be able to, over the course of a year, as for which they have procurement approved, that they can then determine, sir, whether or not, which method, which technique that they would engage with respect to the procurement process. A lot of this, sir, is important background information, because the purpose of this exercise is for entities to be able to publish, sir, the methods that they're using to procure, bring greater openness to the process, such that if persons are required, sir, to pre-qualify, that they have the opportunity, sir, to pre-qualify, simply because of the size and the scope, sir, of whatever the service happens to be. That is a process that is important. But what I want to reinforce, sir, is, in principle, we have determined, sir, that, and this is where procuring entities, sir, now have to be able to apply the provisions here in the context, sir, of helping us to be able to bring more people into the process. So if, for example, sir, and I use this example very crudely to explain what I mean. So In Wharton, sir, for example, there's just one pavilion by the National Sports Council. I can't tell you how many painters they may have in the Wharton area specifically. But as a matter of policy, just like there are pavilions across the length and breadth of the country, if the National Sports Council desired, sir, to paint the pavilions across the country, it would make sense, sir, to, in the context of what we are referring to in terms of geography and enfranchising people, to be able to, wherever the area is, sir, to say, we will restrict the painting of that specific pavilion, sir, to suppliers who are from Wharton. And the suppliers from Wharton, sir, would submit their quotations, and the Sports Council will go through it and select a person from Wharton to paint the pavilion in Wharton, as an example. And similarly, sir, as there are many other pavilions across the country, do that same thing that allows them to be able to, through policy, actually bring to fruition the policy intent of government to be able to help bring small contractors and those types of people into the process. I know that a lot of that work already exists with the Urban Development Commission and the Rural Development Commission. But instinctively, sir, as we have entities that have these facilities around the country, and I'm just using this as an example because it's not the only example, but I'm just using this as an example, as I said, cruelly to explain was the intent here, sir. But similarly, sir, in Wharton, there are 20 housing units in 20 blocks, sorry. 20 blocks, not housing units, 20 blocks. So similarly, and I know that whilst persons may choose their own color, but just by way of example, sir, this is just, as I say, illustrative. If the National Housing Corporation, sir, wanted to paint the housing units in Wharton, of which there are 20 blocks, unlike, obviously, the single facility, which is NHC, let's say, for example, there were 15 painters, sir, in the Wharton area, then one could conceivably see that obviously 15 painters can't paint one pavilion. But the NHC, sir, for example, can restrict those persons who are registered in the context of the system from Wharton to say, well, we have 20 blocks. You can divide it into lots, or you can, however it is divided, sir, you could bring those persons in to be able to do that. Now, of course, sir, it is still up to people from Wharton to determine whether they will submit something. And the purpose here is for us to recognize that the way that government executes procurement has to change, and by government meaning institutions. And therefore that is driven by policy, sir. And therefore the extent to which we can enfranchise people, sir, and bring more people into the process can be done in a way, sir, that does not betray the spirit of the law, but also helps to enfranchise people in a way that makes sense. So I hope what I'm conveying, sir, is making sense. Similarly, sir, at Newton, BIDC has a whole set of buildings there, washer surface area, sir, to paint. And I'm just using this as another way for people to realize, sir, that in that instance, BIDC may choose painters from Christchurch as the catchment area. Not necessarily from Kingston or Wharton, but I'm just saying in the context of the space. Similarly, sir, in Oistins, you know you have municipal facilities from the police, you also have the polyclinic. And all I'm using this to illustrate, sir, is that the process through which we engage can be very, 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 can reinforce our drive to enfranchise people. But at the end of the day, sir, it still is up to the people who are from that specific area to look at the opportunity and to prepare whatever bid, sir, to so do. And this is what we will encourage in terms of being able to ensure that procuring entities can indeed, sir, enfranchise many of our young people, our businesses in the area, to be able to help do the same. Now, the truth is, sir, similarly, the Ministry of Education, there's even though Dighton Griffith and Foundation, in the context, are boards, there's Milton Lynch and Christchurch girls. But for the purpose of the exercise, sir, you have two secondary schools and two primary schools in a very relatively short space. So I would imagine, sir, that if the ministry, through policy to the board, as well as directly from within the context of the primary, but say, look, well, we have all these schools and facilities all over here. I don't know how many blocks on specific things they may have, but the point is, sir, if they were painting those facilities, they could in fact use, again, sir, registered painters who are suppliers in the system from that catchment area, who will still have to submit a bid, sir, a quotation in the process, to give, sir, life to what we intend to be able to do. And this is really where, sir, I believe the transformation will come. Because if people are aware of an opportunity, they will determine, sir, that this is the opportunity that they would like to be able to participate in. Of course, sir, at the end of the day, they still have to compete with other persons. But I am sufficiently satisfied, sir, that based on just the very simple example that I've laid out in the context, that we are able to actually utilize the services of a wide cross-section of the public in a way that makes sense. Now, of course, sir, you don't paint a school every week. You don't even paint a school every year. But by way of example, though, the way that procurement is done in that example, I'm just saying we can make a substantive difference, sir, and it is our intention, sir, as government through policy, to make a substantive difference in the way that procurement is done, making it as easy as possible for people to participate in order for us to remove those hurdles that have been in the place of persons for so long. Now, the truth is, sir, we are still in the process of developing the regulations that will go along with this specific bill. But I take this particular time to explain to the public that whilst you see a law here, sir, which, as you know, sir, the law must give the overall framework, to make this operational, sir. To make this operational, the regulations, sir, will be developed in order to ensure that the spirit and the policy of government to enfranchise as many people as possible remains. Let me say, sir, that I know at the moment the government of Barbados, sir, deliberately single sources from I think it's the National Association of the Visually Impaired. MOPS, sir. All MOPS that is procured by government comes from those persons, are made by those persons. And we pay a premium, sir, because we could go and buy MOPS cheap from Miami or wherever, but we buy MOPS, sir, from visually impaired persons in this country. And we pay a premium for it. And to the extent that that is done within the context of central government, it is our intention, sir, to make sure that that can spread right across and include the other state-owned enterprises, because that deliberate type of enfranchisement, sir, and as you know, sir, once you're part of that framework, there's no politicization of that, sir. These are a vulnerable community, and we are proud to be able to continue to support that community. And we want to also include more persons with disabilities in the process. And we are actively seeing how we can bring more persons with disabilities within the context of public procurement in order to give them a fair chance, sir, like a fairer chance, and a more deliberate chance, in order to be able to be sufficiently independent, sir, to support themselves. And I think that is a worthy cause. I know that the member for St. Thomas has been working with those persons within the disabled community. Certainly COVID has not been kind to any of us, and certain persons who are most vulnerable obviously will deserve more of an opportunity to get ahead. And I know that I don't think there is any right-thinking Barbadian that will seek to criticize the government for making sure that we can expand opportunities, sir, for persons who are truly vulnerable in this society. And it certainly will be our intention, sir, going forward to be able to provide opportunities for those persons. I know that there's already support and, of a technical nature that is ongoing, and I hope to be able, with the Honourable Member from St. Thomas, to be able to outline those concrete areas where this will happen. But I give the commitment to the Chamber that we will, on the other hand, sir, provide the resources for whatever training. I know that the ministry has been seeking certainly assistance in kind to help train more persons with disabilities. And the government, sir, stands ready to be able to work alongside the members of the disabled community to be able to bring more opportunities to those persons. But it is a deliberate, sir, a deliberate focus on ensuring that we can empower people. And the work is not yet done. We are continuing to focus on it and to change the lives of all Barbadians. But I reiterate that obviously persons with disabilities are truly vulnerable in this society, and the government will do what it can, sir, to be able to uplift them and their families in a way that is worthy of our attention. It is also instructive, sir, that throughout this process, you will note that where there is and I just pivot again, sir, back to the painting of the housing area, sir, just as an example. So let's say, for example, sir, there might be 25 painters in Wharton, 20 blocks, sir. The NHC decides that it will cut it up in lots, which may be a block a piece. But for some reason, sir, people submit, and of course, if you got 25, but they only got 20, obviously there's some selection process that has to be gone through. So here's the thing, sir. So long as you are registered with the entity, within the system, you will get a notification. You will determine, sir, whether you submit a bid, a quotation or not. If you do not submit a quotation, sir, then obviously there's no way that you will be considered to be part of the process. However, submitting a quotation as part of the process, a response, whatever the language is, sir, as part of the response, then triggers a different action. And so, if there's to be a change in scope or anything with respect to that, sir, for the persons who submit, if there's to be a change in their query, they're often queries as part of the process, sir, as you well know. The NHC in this instance would, through the system, provide an update, which then goes to all of the persons, sir, that submitted. Because as part of the process, sir, there's not going to be a situation where I happen to get down by the NHC physically to collect the document. I might be running late, sir, and when I get there, sir, the guard lock up it closed, place shut, and they can't get access to the information. So by changing the way that this is being done, so long as you submit a quotation as part of the tender offer, request for quotations, proposals, whatever it is, sir, in this case, then the NHC uploads the information in the system. All of those, out of those 25 persons, for example, who submitted a bid, they will get a notification or clarification based on any question. So, sir, you might have a question. You pose the question to the NHC. The NHC will post the question to all the people that supply, sir. Not to say that it is you that asked the question, but they post the question because it's not intended to say that the speaker asked the question, but the speaker did ask a question. The question is posed on the what you call the public board, which goes to everybody that responded, because we have expressed interest. It goes to everybody that responded, and the answer to the question goes to everybody at the same time. So that at every step of the way, sir, people are kept informed of whether there are any changes, whether there are any queries, such that the information is made easily available, and therefore we are all kept in the loop. Now, of course, sir, there's always an evaluation process, and the evaluation process will look and see, okay, well, sir, I must admit, I don't know what's the painting rate, but let's say the painting rate is $5 a square foot, just for example. Obviously, the NHC would know, well, each block is whatever square foot it is, and they will deviate up and then determine based on, you know, competence, whatever, that I might get block 1, but you might get block 12, for example. And obviously the internal deliberation is whatever the process is, but the point is, the intent here is to try to pull as many people into the process as possible to allow them to participate. And we believe, sir, that the proper utilization through policy, sir, by departments would allow for a lot of this additional activity and bringing people into the process to happen. Rather than giving one person in here, sir, and it might very well be the honorable member for St. Michael West, he might get all 20 blocks to paint. And oftentimes, as you know, sir, people say, wait, well, I can paint too. You with me? Just as an example, sir, because what you want to inculcate is that as we want to help people, is to give people a sense of responsibility that the environment in which they are living, that they can see some benefit from it. So it is not to say that the member for St. Michael West can do work in Christchurch East Central. But the reality is that we're trying to make sure that, sir, we give some balance with respect to some of these policy initiatives. Because oftentimes, sir, when you see these things happening, people ask the questions, but wait, how come we can get a chance to paint the pavilion, or get a chance to paint the block or the BADC building? And therefore, the intent here, sir, is to resolve some of those issues. Now, the reality of the situation is, sir, is that those 25 painters that I refer to in Watton, sir, they might be real busy with the private sector work. You understand? And even though it may be the intention of the NHC to do it, they may be so busy, sir, and the truth is, sir, the value of the work might not be sometimes, you know, because fellas out there making some serious change, you know, sir. But the value of the work might not be such that they're thing, but at least we give an opportunity for persons to participate. And if there are not enough persons, obviously, who from the specific area responds, then the entity, sir, can do a much broader call in the context to be able to respond and still get the works executed. And therefore, I want to reinforce the point, sir, that our intent here is to bring, where possible, a lot of the works to be executed within the context of the geography, and make it real, sir, such that people can feel as if they have a part of the responsibility for maintaining their environment. Now, I know, for example, sir, I don't know how many manholes and wells we have across the country, but I know there's a lot. There's a lot. By the same token, I know that there are not many well diggers. But there are some people who certainly, whether masons or otherwise, sir, who can do a lot of these repairs of the wells. You know, the routine things, sir, that don't require a lot of outlay with respect to this thing, to the supplier, but the mechanism through which we can bring people into the space by area is one thing that I believe, sir, that the application of these types of principles would allow MTW, sir, and certainly the Drainage Department to be able to achieve a whole lot more faster if we're able to streamline the procurement process and hold the very people accountable for executing the work. Because, sir, you know, if you go and do bad work in Waterhall land, sir, you know that people going to hold on you. And well, they're going to hold you accountable. Let me put it that way, sir. Because people will feel a sense of responsibility in that if there are, and I'm sure that there are, sir, many masons within that area, the reality is that whether the manhole covers, sir, and these types of things, and the truth is, the depots are responsible for dealing with a lot of these things. The reality is that I don't necessarily want to use the word outsource, but in order to get these works done and to the satisfaction of the communities, I believe, sir, that there's an opportunity for us to be able to apply these principles such that the lives of people can change, and then you leave, perhaps, sir, the more structural, the bigger works, obviously, to the depots and stuff to so do, and you're able to bring people into the process. But the only way that we can successfully do that, sir, is, I believe, is to get people into the process. Getting people into the process and through a deliberate policy intervention, sir, make it happen. And I ask all Barbadians, sir, that as we roll out, not just the legislation and not just the software and all of that, sir, but the intent of this government, as we have set about from the very, very, very beginning, sir. And you will recall, sir, I started this debate by making reference to the fact that we are still paying off the $1.9 billion in arrears for things that were not paid. And I know that for a lot of persons, sir, engaging with government is not always an easy process. And if one provided goods and services under the last administration, sir, I know that the experience with government certainly would not have been a good one, regrettably, because they certainly did not care whether or not persons were able to support themselves or their families. And they treated people certainly, sir, as if, well, less than human. I will leave it there. Less than human. That we have been trying to make sure, sir, through our systems, and I keep making the point, sir, part of there's a perception out there, sir, that the government trying to push technology so they could spy on you and do all these things, sir. And the truth is, sir, nothing is further from the truth. Because what I described to you, sir, is that when somebody turns up and the guard shut the door, sir, and you can't get the information because you got to come back Monday, sir, that's time. That's time, sir. And therefore, as we roll these things out, I ask Barbadians to think critically about how they engage with government, because often, the truth is, sir, sometimes you may submit, I may submit I say this proverbial, of course, sir, an invoice to a government department. And certainly, it has happened, and I use COVID as an example only from the perspective that just last week, sir, and obviously we had to put in some contingencies, but just last week, some members of the Treasury tested positive for COVID. And of course, sir, that caused immediate, in terms of disruption in the flow. So obviously, immediately contingency had to be put in place to make sure that things can still function. But I say that to say, sir, that sometimes, in the wider context, as we are dealing with paper, you submit an invoice, sir, probably in somebody's email, or you physically got there and barely give it, and you give it to the guard. The guard's supposed to give it to whoever based on, what's going on now with COVID. And regrettably, sir, the officer might be working from home. And if the officer working from home, sir, but you physically take the invoice to the department, and the officer who's responsible, sir, is working from home, then unless there is a system in place to get that invoice to the officer working from home to execute, then you got a problem. So what we are suggesting, sir, is we have to remove, sir, as much as possible, those touch points as part of the process so that we can get people paid. Because for strange things happen, sir. The invoice, sir, ends up in I put it in the desk because it's 4:30 on a Friday evening. I put it in the desk, sir. And they put it in the desk. And when they come back Monday morning, sir, or, I come back Monday morning, I forgot that the invoice in the desk there, because they come and I go in a meeting, and we doing, sir. And then something else comes, sir, and they put it in the desk. And this is only I'm not saying this happens regularly, but it can happen, sir. And 2 or 3 weeks could pass, sir. I gone for vacation, or I gone for sick leave, sir, and the invoice, sir, still in the desk. And therefore, we are working to, as we re-engineer not just the procurement process, but equally, sir, the internal processes with respect to the execution of the procurement, that when persons submit the invoices to the person that they're required to submit it to electronically, sir, and I can't stress that, electronically. Because by submitting it electronically, sir, it allows for an alert to be captured rather than me having to remember that the guard come and put it and give me it here. Whoever the supervisor in the office will know, okay, there are 10 invoices that are outstanding for this particular project, what is going on? And therefore action can be taken such that people can be paid. So I know that for much of the public, sir, there is still some anxiety with respect to getting paid. We have made, I believe, sir, good progress, because for the most part, sir, we have been paying our invoices, even though under the BERT program, sir, 60 days is the limit. We have been working to make sure that we pay all invoices within 30 days. And whilst there may be 1 or 2 instances where that has not happened, I believe that it is testament to the fact that we have been requesting of all government departments, because just bear in mind, sir, that if your invoice is sitting in the desk, not keyed into the system, the Treasury really can't pay you. And we are working, and here's the other part too, sir. Here's the other part of that equation. I submit the invoice, so the guard get the invoice to me, sir, and it might actually stay a little late to make sure the invoice get put in the system. But I go on a vacation Monday, sir, and the check come back and comes to my desk, and I go on a 6 weeks vacation. As you know, some public servants get 6 week vacation. The check is in my desk, but who I did not sufficiently brief the member for St. Peter, who looking after my portfolio once I gone on vacation, and the check, sir, sitting in the desk, waiting for somebody to call you, sir, to come and collect the check. And I say to all interested suppliers, and as we have been working to reduce this check issue, sir, we want and have been working with all of the various vendors, suppliers, sir, to get their bank account information or credit union account, sir, or whichever institution that they are having that they have a financial relationship with, in order for us to be able to pay. Because rather than have a physical check printed at the Treasury, that money's that process could easily go straight to your bank account. And we have been working with persons to get this done, because it don't make sense, sir, that you gotta leave, for example, and I use this example, NXC is in Blenheim, all the way across by the Ivy. The painters in Wharton paint the pavilion, sir, but then gotta leave and go all the way down Blenheim and hope they get there before 4:30, sir, for the accountant to sign out, for them to get the money. When on submission of their bank account information, they submit the invoice and they're paid. So that we cut out, sir, a lot of the frustration that people have experienced in the context of the system. And we are quite clear, sir, that these are some of the things that have humbugged people for too long. But I encourage all Barbadians to be able to get their bank account information or credit union information into the system. I know that the transition to the real-time ACH has been slightly delayed. But they are still working on the testing with respect to being able to do that. But even though that is delayed, sir, submission of your invoices and your bank account information still will allow you to be paid, rather than you having to wait till I come back from vacation and remember, sir, that the check in my desk and I didn't tell the honorable member St. Peter that the speaker was supposed to be paid, and the speaker vexed because he didn't get paid, and the truth is, the honorable member, I might lock up my because as you would imagine, sir, these are the things. Checks are not the kind of things that you leave lying about. You got to make sure these things locked up and all of that. So I'm just saying, sir, that as we work internally to help resolve some of these problems, I know that there's some may still exist, and that's why we've been working with the department, sir, to make sure that they too can streamline their internal processes, such that when someone is actually awarded a tender in whatever department, sir, that there are standards for which persons will be paid. If you have an invoice, you put it into the system, because there's normally a 30-day payment period. You input the invoice in the system, it allows the treasury to know, okay, this is to be paid on December 15th, but you know that from 2 or 3 weeks ago, because that's the nature of the system. So we have been working, sir, to resolve some of these problems, and I can say to the country that don't allow the bad experience, sir, under the last administration to prevent you from wanting to continue to provide goods and services to the government. This government certainly, by far, sir, and is like poles apart, universes apart, sir, as far apart as you could possibly get between us and them. We have been paying people, sir. We continue to pay people in the worst pandemic. We have been more than fiscally responsible, sir. We have been responsive within the context of what we have been doing, and still keeping faith, sir, with respect to the fact that we have to transform and do things. This procurement bill, sir, I believe, is one of the critical pieces of legislation that will change how persons interface with government, and it also, sir, will change how government interfaces with people through proactive policy and execution, sir, with respect to how departments and agencies of government function. We hope, sir, that with the active participation of Barbadians, that they too will seek out whatever technical assistance from, because the government has a number of agencies that can provide some technical assistance, whether it is with the preparation of bids, sir, and there's training available that can be made available through webinars with the government procurement department to facilitate and give information to people. So I do not want in any way, sir, for any person, any part of this country, sir, whether in Waterton or Waterhall land, sir, whether in Ben Hill or in Valerie, sir, or in the Plain, or in Prout, sir, Crab Hill, any person to feel that they are excluded, sir, from this process. Because this government has been doing everything that it can, sir, to open up, sir, and bring people into the process. And we will continue, sir. We will continue, in spite of the howls of protest, to bring people into this process, sir. And it is up to people to ignore, sir, to ignore the level of misinformation as well as disinformation, sir, malinformation, sir. All of it is bad. Of people pretending that they now discover religion, sir, because all of a sudden they realize that this government, sir, has been fixing the things that they neglected, sir, to fix for 10 years. Now, it is not over, sir. It ain't easy, and trust me, sir, I telling you, sir, it ain't easy. It ain't easy. The honorable member for St. Michael, South Central, knows, knows it ain't easy, sir. It ain't easy. And I will not in any way try to let the country feel that that it is. It may appear, sir, it may appear as if it is easy. But I remember, sir, and if the honorable member for St. Michael West is of the mind to cast his mind back to when we were preparing, sir, to come to office, and I use the word deliberately, sir, preparing, sir, preparing, that what people may perceive, sir, as ease is simply the level of preparation, sir, that we did. We weren't just out there campaigning, sir. We were preparing. None of us, sir, made any wild statements about the condition of this country. And I want to say, sir, that right now, Barbados, sir, in the middle of this pandemic, is, whilst for a lot of people, regrettably, sir, because of the pandemic, has exposed people in a way that they have never been exposed in their life, sir. This government, sir, has been steadily bringing this thing back to a level that at least persons can feel reasonably comfortable with the circumstances. It is by no means over, sir. It is by no means over. But people in this country know, sir. They know within their hearts, sir, deep in their bones, they know, sir, that the condition that the last administration left this country in, and let me remind the public through you, sir, that they never experienced $600 million loss in revenue. But in spite of not experiencing that, sir, they still found themselves, sir, introducing fees at the university. So Lord knows, rather than us providing tablets, and I know the honorable member for St. Michael Southeast has been working to try to make sure that we can provide a decent online learning experience in the most extraordinary time for this country, sir. I shudder to think, sir, that faced with this same situation, rather than giving tablets to people so that they could continue the learning, sir, Lord knows where else they would have gone, sir, with respect to education. Because the difference, sir, between this government, and I want to stress it, sir, to the country through you, the difference between this government and the policy choices that we have made, sir, the difference, sir, has been to the benefit of ordinary Barbadians. Ordinary Barbadians, sir. And when people say that we're borrowing and we're doing this and the next and the third, sir, the reality is, sir, they were not paying people. At any time, sir, you don't pay people, nobody's going to lend you money. Nobody, sir. Nobody. That is their track record, is not ours. And this government, sir, knows that the work is not done. We have not rested on any of the laurels that we have in terms of achieved, sir, to get us to the point that we've gotten to. The work continues. And I believe in my heart, sir, that with Barbadians being cognizant and aware of many of the things that we have introduced to help, sir, to help. Despite losing $600 million in revenue, sir, we never asked nobody to pay tuition fees, sir, at the university. We ain't asked nobody to pay for secondary education, sir. We ain't asked nobody to pay for primary education, sir. And we lost $600 million in revenue, sir. We ain't asked a boy in this country, sir, to pay to go to the polyclinic, sir. It is a difference, sir. It is a difference in policy. that is designed to ensure that we can maintain the social fabric of this country. And the reality is, sir, that in as much as we have had to and it's interesting that with all the talk out there about government by IOU, sir, you know, and again, this is the context of public procurement, sir. Sir, we are still paying for diesel. We are still paying for diesel, sir, that the transport board, the few transport board buses that they had running, sir, when they were in office. We are still paying, sir, for the diesel that the few transport board buses that they had running, sir, in this country, as well as the diesel, sir, for the few sanitation trucks that they had running, sir. We still paying for that, sir. We still paying for it. We still paying for it, sir. So that's why it says, sir, that when this thing about public procurement, and the truth is, sir, they're lucky, you know, sir. They're lucky. Because I will share this with the chamber and with the country, sir. When we came to office, sir, almost every day we get a call from either Saul or Ruby, sir. Because they want to know when they're going to get paid for the fuel that the government, I mean, and this was the fire service, not is the fault of the fire service, is not the fault even of the transport board or SSA. The reality is the last government, sir, was just simply irresponsible. Irresponsible. But people wanted to know when they will be paid. And the truth is, sir, I saw in the paper recently that the Saul Group, and actually the Saul Group was already sold, I think, in either late 2018 or 19, sir. And the truth is, this country, and I know it may sound strange to ordinary people, because ordinary people still got to catch the bus, sir. And as much as we had to keep food in our fridge, sir, for 3 and 4 weeks on end waiting for the garbage truck to come, the fact that Saul, sir, was owned by a Barbadian, then, sir, is what allowed transport board buses, the few that they had, and the sanitation trucks, the few that they had that was working, sir, to be able to come and collect the garbage every 3 or 4 weeks, sir. And they did that without paying those people. I'm serious, sir. We are still paying for that now. And I raised it because obviously, given that we have concurred with what the Senate sent back this morning, sir, in the context of the Series F bonds that were issued, sir, I just want to remind Barbadians that of that $1.9 billion that we were owed, sir, that the government owed people, that's roughly 45 million or so every month, sir. Out of whatever revenue we got, we had to give people, pay back people, sir. $45 million every month, and we're still doing it. That will come to end in September next year, sir. Of that 49, sir, just about 6 million was for public servants, national insurance contributions that weren't paid either, you know, sir. And as I said, just about 1 million every month to pay for fuel, diesel, sir. You can't scoff at that, sir, but in the context of public procurement, and as I articulated, sir, you cannot have a situation where the government is taking liberties on people. It ain't right, sir. And that is why we set up that framework, sir, to solve these issues. We have been, and in spite of all of that, we just told you, sir, we ain't just paying back for those things, but we have been keeping current with all the other things that we have been consuming in government. Because that is what fiscal discipline looks like, sir. That's what government is supposed to do. But it ain't easy because we made a commitment that we was going to pay back that $1.9 billion. And when the Minister of Housing gave us a paper, sir, in January 2020, telling us that there was 312 odd million for land acquisition, sir. And the truth is, sir, it was a headache. I ain't gonna tell a lie, it was a headache because we already had things programmed in and then after they did all their reconciliation, 312 million, we said, boy, it would have been a bit tight, sir, but if you can cast your mind back, sir, to 2020, January 2020, that is, things were actually in a completely different space to where it is now. And the prospects of the economy, sir, were such that in the ministry, we were contemplating, okay, even if everything went well from April, it would have been a bit of a stretch to pay the 10 million per month at the outer limit for the remaining 30 months, sir. But obviously we agreed, okay, well, the Ministry of Housing will go back and negotiate so that we can be able to settle. So even if things started in April, the extra 10 million a month, we could have eked it out, but because the prospects of growth and everything was falling into place, then, sir, we felt it was doable. It would have been tight, sir. It would have been real tight. But we would have been able to do it. I feel that we would have been able to do it, sir. But as you know, sir, January 2020, we were gathering, and we had a wonderful time down by the member for St. Lucie, and we had a wonderful time in St. Peter, and then we were in St. Thomas, and then in the middle of St. Thomas, sir, as you know, everything came to a head. So I'm taking this opportunity, sir, in this debate this morning, just to remind people, sir, and to remind those out there who have amnesia, because we paying for the bills that they left us to pay, sir. And we continue to pay in the middle of a pandemic, sir, whilst having to increase expenditure to deal with the pandemic, to try to give some measure of social protection, sir, to over 3,000 families, sir. $600 a month, sir, is I accept, sir, is not a lot of money, but that's what you could afford in the context, sir, of what we're doing. If we did not have to pay back, sir, the 1.9 billion, which is $45 million a month, sir, we would have been able to do more for the people. So when I hear people talking these things, sir, they need to come to that Christian understanding, sir, that you can't spend money twice. You can't spend money twice, sir, and there's a consequence. We would have been able to do more if they had left the country in a situation, sir, in a better situation, that more could be done. So this process that we have been going through, sir, of re-engineering all the things that we're doing in the public service, sir, and we've been trying to do it as quickly as we could do it, sir, as quickly as we do it, because there are things, sir, that have taken too long in this country to be executed. And the longer we take to do it, sir, the costlier it is to maintain the status quo. And we simply cannot afford, sir, to not make the reforms either in government or for people, sir, who work with the government to be able to engage. And so it is I am comfortable, sir, extremely comfortable I'm proud, sir, of the work that this government has been able to achieve, in spite, sir, of a set of circumstances that certainly in January 2020, sir, I can tell you that none of us in here, nobody in the country, all of the people who are clairvoyant now, sir, all the people who are clairvoyant now had a clue, sir, as to how to respond. And this government continues to respond to challenge after challenge after challenge, sir, and certainly over in the first 6 months of this financial year. So you imagine, sir, if the COVID wasn't bad, you had the accident, you had the hurricane, sir. So I want people to cast their minds back to the state of the country when we found it, sir, in 2018. And all of that, sir, don't forget, sewage was flowing in this country on the streets about 3 years, sir. They had no intention of fixing it, sir. None. But we deal with these things, sir, because it is in the interest of ordinary Barbadians. Ordinary Barbadians, sir. People avoided going on the South Coast Because, sir, you know, I mean, come on. If your toilet bowl crack home, sir, you don't pass and watch it leak out all the time, sir. You call a plumber and get the thing fixed, you get it replaced. You deal with it, sir. But we got a set of people who seem to be showing their heads again, sir. Showing their heads again. They should be shamed. Should be shamed, sir, because the way they treated this country, sir, none of us deserve that, sir. None of us. None of us. They should be. They should. But I take the point. They ain't got no shame. So this bill, sir, this bill is intended to revolutionize the process of procurement, to bring more people into the process. Because as you know, sir, a lot of contracts we had to renegotiate, sir, under the last government. And the truth is, sir, there's too numerous to mention here. And time does not really permit me to go through all the sordid details, sir, that we had to renegotiate, sir. And when you really reflect on it, sir, and the truth is, you know, sir, I know when I reflect, sir, on some of these contracts that we renegotiated, and I want to remind people all the time, right, sir? And I know that the Attorney General has been working to bring the appropriate legislation to deal with some of these substantive matters. But the ease with which, sir, some of these contracts were negotiated, and they say ease, perhaps that's not the right word to use. If a contract, sir, was worth $45 million, suddenly we were able to renegotiate for 20, sir. So when I ask myself, but wait, how is it that when we come and we sit down and say, look, this ain't right by the people, you, the contracting party, say, well, okay. It tells you, sir, that something fundamentally was wrong, sir, with the way that procurement was being done in this country under the last administration. Wrong. And I saw that, sir, in contract after contract after contract. Something wrong, sir. So when they come, so I'm waiting now to hear, sir, what they say about this procurement bill. Because when it's in, that government IOU, but it's their money that we paying. So I don't know how government paying by IOU can make sense, sir. They said that the Fair Credit Reporting Bill now is to create some social thing which is the most bizarre thing, sir, I've ever heard in my life. When we all know, sir, we all know that was, and I will say this, sir, as we gave a commitment in the throne speech to establish the Financial Services Tribunal, that process is almost complete to make sure that the practices of financial institutions are regularized such that things like predatory lending and those types of things are not encouraged. But as I said to you when I was leading that bill, sir, as I said to you, if people out there, sir, who are not taking anybody's deposits are lending their own money, they can determine what interest rate they charge because it's their money. They have no regulatory, they don't have to answer the central bank, not the FSA or anybody. It's their money. And we want to make sure, sir, that we put ordinary Barbadians in a position that they don't have to feel exposed in that way, that they have to feel desperate, sir, to go and take loans at interest rates at 30 and 40%. That is the intention of this government. So we have been putting the systems in place, sir, the mechanisms in place to be able to respond to those things. But I am comfortable, sir, as I said earlier, that when I hear these things, I know that they ain't really got nothing substantive to say because they can never contribute anything constructive, sir, to help us to resolve some of these long-standing issues. Because if they did, they would have done it and they would not have left, sir, the country in the way that they did. And this government, sir, this government will continue to do the work on behalf of the people. And in spite of COVID, sir, in spite of COVID, this government remains committed to solving the problems that have been humbugging people, sir, for far too long. So we're opening up the process, sir. And in opening up the process, I ask Barbadians, sir, to come in. Come in. Coming in to the system, coming into the process, allows us to be able, sir, not just to access procurement, but coming into the process allows us then to ensure that the policy formulation and determination, sir, can be crafted to deal with the circumstances that you're facing. But if you out there, sir, you know, blowing with the wind, you don't want to engage with the government, you ain't really want to engage with the financial sector, you don't want to engage with the, you know, the private sector, or you don't want to do anything in a formalized way, you can got problems, sir. Because at some point you have to connect in the real world with somebody who will say, well, how can I trust that you can deliver what you say you can deliver? You have to come into the system. And we are making it easy for you to come into the system. We've put systems, introduced reforms like the Trust Loan Program to help people. And the reality is, sir, whether you need $5,000 or not, sir, as a small business person, whether you need the $5,000 or not, or the $10,000 or not, sir, you should go through the exercise. Demonstrate that you can pay back the $5,000, turn it over quickly. Turn over the $10,000 quickly, sir. Establish the history. So that in that process, sir, of doing so, you are able then, when you really want to expand, whether you go to the bank or you go to a group of youngsters or other people who may wish to invest, sir, to be able to get to a different level. Such that in the purpose of the bill, sir, the intent here is to open up opportunities for people. And in open up the opportunities for people, sir, we have started to put systems and reforms in place to help people along the way. But unless you engage, sir, with the process, unless you engage with the process and be disciplined in the process, sir, then you can always find yourself wanting, because there are people out there always ready, sir, to mislead people. To mislead people. And the government has been strategic, sir, in responding to the issues. I wish, sir, that COVID didn't happen. You don't know, sir, how badly I wish that COVID didn't happen. But it did, sir. And regrettably, a lot of people lost their lives, sir. And that is hurtful, sir, because it is the saddest thing, sir, to experience as government, knowing that there's very little that you can do, sir, to influence that. Because once, obviously, the virus hits and it takes root, sir, the doctors can do what they can, but there's very little that you can do. But the social fallout, sir, mentally, financially, so everything, sir, has been stressful. And in spite of that, we continue, sir, to work hard. Right now, sir, I can tell you, I'm tired. But tired because we have been pushing, sir, pushing all the time, sir, to get things done, because we know how important it is, sir, to get these things done, so that as we are in the process of recovering, sir, that we can accelerate that recovery, that we can get people back to work, that people can start to feel a mental ease again, sir. A mental ease. And I'm not saying to you, sir, that at the end of 2019 that things in Barbados were perfect. We know that they were not perfect, sir. We know that they were not perfect. But we have been, sir, in spite of the circumstances, I believe very strong in responding within the capacity that we could, sir, to people. The last thing, sir, I know that the Minister of Housing we've been pushing him, sir, as parliamentary colleagues, to be able to get these houses repaired and rebuilt and all this, because, sir, we can see that complete disruption that upended a lot of people's lives in a very unexpected way. And we do so, sir, because this government wants to do right, sir, by the people. And the decisions with respect to procurement, and I say this against the backdrop, sir, that in the middle of a crisis, sir, there are rules in terms of what will govern procurement. Of course, there are rules. But in the middle of a crisis, sir, we have to respond to people. And sometimes, sir, we have met, certainly as cabinet, to ensure that we could respond to people. You get the assessment, sir, you respond, you engage, and you do what you have to do, sir. Because the response is critical, sir. The timing is critical. And therefore, there's no procurement plan that I believe that any certainly at the beginning of this year that the NHC could possibly have provided that would have encompassed Hurricane Elsa, sir, and the need to respond to all these things in there. But, sir, we did it. We did it. We sat and we worked with them, sir. RDC and UD, and sir, trust me, it is not perfect. But the reality is we are trying to make sure that we have the systems in place that can easily flow, that information can be exchanged. And it is important, sir, that I believe if we had this in place 2 years ago, this process of dealing with these contractors would have been much smoother. People would have, and we would have been able, notwithstanding the logistical challenges with getting materials and all these types of things, at least that process would have been smoother, and we would have been able to get this thing through much sooner. And this is why, sir, it's important that we continue to strive to improve, sir, everything that we do, because it matters to ordinary people, sir, how quickly the house will get repaired, sir. And therefore, as a carpenter, mason, a contracting company, or whatever it is, sir, our stance is come into the process. In every tender that you might respond to, clearly you wouldn't, but come into the process. Get the information. You decide whether you want to respond or not, but come into the process. And in coming into the process, I believe that we will be able to not just deal with the transparency and accountability, but actually be able to respond faster to some of the concerns that have been plaguing people in this country, sir, excuse me, for too long. Let me, sir, speak very quickly to part 5, which is related, sorry, before I get to part 5, sir, I want to speak very quickly about procurement of public-private partnerships, which is at clause 60. And just, again, sir, just, it is, you know, sir, it is the one thing that I realize in this very short space of time as a member of parliament and certainly as a minister, sir, is that in spite of information that you put into the public space, sir, in spite of you wanting to give credible information to people, sir, that people, we live in a world, sir, where I could get up one morning and if I feel like lambasting you, sir, I could pick up my phone and drop a voice note in it and say all kinds of things about you, sir. I could even accuse you of going Harrison College, sir, which I know, sir, would be a very serious, accusation. But you take the point, sir. You take the point, because, and I say so very seriously, sir, because this issue of public-private partnerships, sir, is an important point that I want to think here, because when we came into office, sir, and we looked at the operation, sir, of Harrison Cave, you would recall, sir, that we came to this, Cabinet sent out the proposals, sir. They went out. People responded. They went through the process. I know that the Honorable Member St. Thomas met with her constituents and all the people to explain that, one, sir, the cave was not being sold. I don't even know how you could sell the cave, but the cave was not being sold. That to give comfort to the residents that they would be a part of the opportunities and the activities that would be there, as a mechanism, sir, to allow us to be able to move Caves of Barbados off of the books of government and to allow a private entity to be able to lease it and be able to operate it, sir, and make the improvements that they can be made. Which then obviously, sir, then means more activities, more, and certainly persons in the area then can benefit from more activity there. But yet still, sir, you kept hearing these things popping up that the government of Barbados is selling Harrison Cave, which in spite of the publication of information, sir, we did. So this piece of letter, this part of the bill, sir, gives the framework within which obviously PPPs will be executed. Sir, the last government engaged in all kinds of things that weren't PPPs. You heard that, sir? Because when I told you about those contractual negotiations, I don't know where that 20-odd million was going, but I know that the person that we negotiated with now getting presumably the money that they were supposed to get. As I said, the other matters will beyond my scope to speak on, but it just told me, sir, that something was wrong. They were not PPPs, sir. What we engaged in at the Harrison Cave, sir, with the Caves of Barbados, is a PPP, sir. We also, sir, as you would recall, announced that we will be seeking for an operator of the airport, which we announced, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 2 years ago. And we brought in the International Finance Corporation, sir, which is the arm of the World Bank that deals with this process in a way that attracts international bidders and the like, sir. And despite that long process, which has now been 2 years, because the intent initially, sir, is that this would have been resolved last year, but of course with COVID, you had to relook all the numbers and all kinds of things. But yet still, sir, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, or I don't remember now, sir, you get a voice note circulated saying that the government of Barbados sell the seaport and the airport, and sir, it is frustrating because on the one hand, sir, and let me take the time to explain. When we lease the facility to a private entity, sir, they're taking up their money, investing in it, they will operate it, we get some profits out of it, sir. They get their return on investment from it, and we're able to build out, sir, more economic activity for people to participate in, rather than us then, sir, given that we had to pay every month, sir, $45 million to people to pay for things that were already used, sir. In order for us to help growth, sir, we use a mechanism of PPPs to get private sector investment to come in partnership with government, sir, to be able to provide opportunities for growth. But every time you move forward, sir, to be able to do things, and the truth is, sir, whether you are Barbadian or external company, when the advertisement goes out, just like in this bill, sir, any Barbadian company, any regional company, any international company, sir, can apply to participate as part of the process. The government has not made a decision as to who it would agree to lease the airport to. But in the voice note too, sir, you hear that the government, I don't know if it will sell the port or, I don't even remember, sir. Look, sir, everybody keeps saying the government ain't got no growth strategy. We are doing things, sir, to create opportunities for growth, getting private sector activity, and then people say they're no growth strategy. We, sir, because of the fiscal discipline that we have been able to display, we have been able to attract persons to this country to invest. COVID, yes, has changed the dynamic somewhat because, as you would appreciate, sir, I don't know a time since air travel, other than perhaps a couple days after 9/11, sir. And truth is that was more in the United States than globally because planes were still flying around the world. But the only time that I know that there was a cessation of flights was on the day of 9/11, or probably like a week after, where there were only military jets flying across the United States. But air travel was still happening globally. There's never been a time since air travel and the modern economy as we know it, that there has ever been a global cessation of air travel. And the extent to which persons seem not to appreciate, sir, that our response to that was quite extraordinary, by the way. Quite extraordinary. But you had to respond to that. And we are still trying to make sure that we can bring things back as quickly as possible. And therefore, we are always clear, sir, from the beginning, that Barbados as a destination cannot shut itself off from the rest of the world. And therefore, as part of the growth strategy, the redevelopment of the airport is part of that growth strategy because, sir, it was our intention when we announced, when we invited IFC to be able to come and help manage the bid process, that it was our intention, and just for the benefit of the chamber and the country, sir, and just give me a minute, that one of the critical things with respect to the PPP and the airport, sir, was that the members of the public would recall that we introduced the kiosk at the airport to smooth the immigration and customs process. A lot of things happened there, sir. But the principle in terms of getting the investment, sir, was to double the traffic through the airport, sir, in the shortest possible time. Double, sir, the traffic through the airport. And we felt at the time, sir, that as we have seen happen elsewhere, that the investment and that is required, given the circumstances that we were in financially as a country, that it made sense to be able to bring private sector investment in, to be able to help build out that in partnership with the government. And we still stand by that, because obviously, if we didn't have the money in January 2019 to do it on our own, we certainly don't have it now, given that at that time, sir, and just for the benefit of the public, because I think, as I made the point earlier, things appear to look easy, sir, but understand that we had introduced a reform in this very chamber, sir. You will recall that we had increased the departure tax, and that there was a specific levy that the monies were going through the airport to fund BTMI. You recall that BTMI, or BTMI used to get $75 million from central government. And that when we came to office, sir, we put those monies took those monies off of government by introducing that levy, which then allowed persons to finance the marketing of the country in the way that was done. So obviously when COVID hit, sir, when COVID hit, the marketing budget gone, because if nobody is traveling, sir, there's nobody to collect the revenue fund from. But equally, sir, with no travel, as you know, sir, our airport still has costs. The airport still has costs. And the extent to which, sir, the airport had never was, with respect to the debt restructuring and everything, sir, the airport was not a part of the debt restructuring, simply because the airport at the time, sir, were one of the perhaps better run agencies financially. But with no people coming through the airport, sir, to drive traffic, to drive revenue, sir, to all of these things, then obviously the airport finds itself in a spot of bother. And the government had to lend some assistance in a lot of ways, sir, to the airport to be able to keep the airport ticking along in all of what was happening in terms of the response for COVID-19. So the importance of the PPP, sir, process with the airport is even more critical today, sir, than even when we started the process. And whilst COVID-19 certainly has changed or provided, but certainly has changed the dynamic and created a lot of uncertainty with respect to the levels of traffic and those types of things, we still remain committed, because once this thing becomes endemic, we still have to continue the growth trajectory of the country. And therefore PPPs, sir, PPPs, let me put it this way, a proper PPP, which is a real PPP, not what the last government did, sir, where there's private investment in partnership with government to be able to share profits or get a dividend or whatever it is, sir. Those are proper PPPs, not a situation where the government has put out the money and then pay back people at exorbitant rate. That's not a PPP, sir, as is the case with a number of the other contracts that were done. But these are issues, sir, that will confront us, and the legislation speaks to the provision for PPPs in the context of the bill, and I am confident, sir, that as part of our growth strategy, that whether it is the local private sector, whether it is the regional private sector, sir, or international bodies, that Barbados must seek to partner, sir, with credible people who have the ability to help finance and build out a lot of the activities in partnership with government. In addition, sir, to building out the wider business confidence in the country, which I believe was sorely lacking, sir, under the last administration. So we are committed, sir, to keeping the country up to date with respect to these things. All of the, and if you know the IFC and the World Bank, sir, they're just dotting I's and crossing T's, sir. Look like well, art is a science, really. They're very, 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 very precise, sir, because they don't put their reputation on the line, sir, easily, and therefore we are confident that as the process is managed, that we'll be able to get some resolution with respect to the airport. Mr. Speaker, sir, I just want to speak a little bit about unsolicited proposals, because one of the things that happens when I suppose government changes is very early on, sir, and even throughout this pandemic, we receive all kinds of things. People want to do this, want to do that, want to do this, want to do that, sir. And we are creating a framework here where FIE wanted to present a proposal to the Parliament, for example, sir, that there are rules governing what happens to that proposal. Okay? So either the Parliament can accept the proposal, and there are options, sir, depending on what you're going to do going forward, whether it is to be done under PPP or not, or whatever. But the fundamental thing is here is that these rules now govern what happens to the information that's submitted as part of the proposal, and the way that it is treated, and whether or not the process through which either open tendering will be executed. Let me just say, sir, that whilst persons submit, and so let me back up. A procuring entity, sir, publishes its procurement plan. FIE submit to Parliament, having seen Parliament's procurement plan for the year, I submit a proposal to Parliament, which obviously is clearly not in there. It is unsolicited in the context of it is not part of the budget, all of those things. Parliament, in considering, sir, this is an interesting idea. Do I have the resources to do it? Should I do it? Or should I just say no? Very simple internal assessment. Now, if the answer is no, in essence, sir, then you send back the proposal and say we're not interested. However, Parliament can't then decide that in the next year that it takes up the proposal and starts to implement it. Okay? The reason for this is that obviously, as you know, sir, issues of intellectual property and these types of things are important. But if Parliament is desirous of pursuing the proposal I have, it has options. It can either, based on the content of it, it can either enter into negotiations with myself or make a determination that is going to put it out for open tender for anybody in here, sir, to participate, or anybody in the country to participate, or anybody in the region to participate, without, sir, giving me any commitment that I will get the bid. Because at the end of the day, sir, having considered the options for it to go, it is important that we set the rules with respect to how these things are done, and there is to be no expectation on my part that, one, having submitted an unsolicited bid, there's no obligation for the government or the entity to, if they wish to go forward and put it out to tender, that somehow I have some advantage in the process. And therefore, this provision is intended to settle a lot of these issues that certainly I myself have experienced with people emailing and calling and saying they want to do this and want to do that. And the extent to which procuring entities now have a responsibility, sir, to make sure that in the proper execution or determination of what happens with respect to unsolicited bids, that good order is maintained. And I think that this allows us to be able to set clear rules with respect to what happens when an entity or a person, whatever, sir, submits bids that are not on our radar, there's a clear process with respect to how that will be resolved, and I hope, sir, that this is able to provide the kind of clarity that is required with respect to the procurement process. Now, sir, one last thing, just very quickly. In the process of determining a bid, or the process of after evaluation, sir. So, as I mentioned to you earlier, sir, if 8 persons submitted tenders, quotations, whatever, to a particular processor, and you are the successful bidder, sir, all persons that submitted a bid officially will be notified, sir, that a successful tender notice has been issued to you, sir. Which obviously means that I didn't get it. But as part of the process, I can ask, as part of the review, that I can ask for, well, you know, a determination as to what was the basis for which my tender was rejected, or what have you. And the evaluating committee and all that information obviously will be shared with the supplier that allows for this to happen. So that, sir, your accepting of the tender notice means then that obviously your information as the supplier is published as the winner, as having been awarded the tender. And given, as we all know, sir, that we know that KIPO has been working at modernizing its processes, it means then that any person who is awarded a tender, sir, any contract, that with that information published, that if persons are desirous of knowing who's the beneficial owners and all those types of things, sir, you go to KIPO's database or wherever the information from where the person is coming from, to be able to indicate issues of that nature. So there would be no, so you're not going to hear, sir, that the speaker got the contract. You ain't going to hear. It will be published. All suppliers who submit a bid will know who is the person who was successful in awarding the tender. And equally, the public would know, so that there is transparency in the process. And as I said, there is a process where persons want to get more information on why they weren't successful. That is part of a new process that will be introduced with respect to the bill. So, all in all, sir, I believe that as legislation goes, the opening up of the space, sir, will help to benefit a lot of people in this country if they choose to participate. It may be a lot of information to absorb, but that is why the ability to filter said information will be important as part of your profile, because certainly, sir, if I'm a painter, I don't need to know about accounting services. If I'm an accountant, I don't need to know about construction services. And therefore, the ability to be able to filter the information that you receive in the context of the system will be available, so that people don't get information overload in that context. And therefore, it is designed to be able to help make the process smoother. We are continuing to upgrade and improve the circumstances, but I believe, sir, that with the passage of this piece of legislation and with the regulations to come, as well as the introduction of technology, as well as the sensitization and training of all of the appropriate officers within the context of the ministries and departments, sensitization of the public, sir, and I urge the public to truly participate, because by doing so, you will give yourself an opportunity, sir, to be able to change your circumstance. And this government, sir, remains committed to improving the lives of people. We are opening up the process, and I believe that with all the cumulative impact of the reforms that we've undertaken, that we can help change the course of the economy, but more importantly, sir, improve the lives of all of our people. And with those very, very, very few words, sir, I beg to move that this bill be read a second time. I'm obliged to you.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that the sitting be suspended until 2:05 p.m.
The question is that this honorable chairman be suspended until 5 minutes after 2. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it. This honorable chairman stands suspended until 2 p.m.